As a pretense to our writing and how we understand storytelling, what makes a good character? We think fleshed out and more defined translates to a better character automatically. When the audience can understand every angle to a character and understand their actions, that makes them more grounded, right? In both fiction and real life, there's a basic want to understand the motivations of all the elements of a story to make the story itself more gripping. In this day and age, we see this a lot in our villain characters. Whether their motivations are explored in order for the audience to at least empathize and understand their point of view, but just like in our own society, we also have the psychopaths, who are harder to understand and flesh out in any understanding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Sure, maybe they had an abusive home life, maybe they were wronged by society, but I think we need to understand that sometimes there is no reason for someone to commit horrible acts. Sometimes their motivations are as simple as they wanted to do something bad, and they lack the empathy to see what they might be doing is wrong. That's just who they are. They can't be reasoned with, there's no wounded puppy backstory that the hero needs to discover. Some shows even get flack for not showing that skill of monstrous bad guys. Not everyone can be reasoned with. Some people's worldviews just don't change. We want to search for understanding these decisions and the leading points that these characters present. These type of character examples are the true definition of completely evil and corrupt. They lack or don't care to understand the basic foundations of the world around them, and choose to act solely on their own selfish goals. They are by definition unrelatable, but still persistent. That's why I believe that characters like Frollo are still relevant and even realistic in our 21st century of understanding characters, their motivations, and their general overall goals in the story. For those unfamiliar, Frollo is more than the standard Disney bad guy of the week. Disney villains in general have a vast range of their moral standings, starting from pretty harmless to complete monsters. Out of the list of complete monsters, Frollo seems to take the cake, but why is that?
But it is Frollo who is the monster, the most monstrous character Disney has ever created.
He doesn't know what he's doing is evil. He has a hierarchical view of just because he's a man of the church. It's a testament to what can distract and use to define. Though most Disney villains have a pretty clear understanding of what they're doing and why,
Worse than the widows and orphans get drowned.
not only does Frollo seem both morally confused about his actions, he is someone that has caused the most destruction and physical chaos compared to others. Have you guys seen this meme? Instead of the bad guys that we can just hate because their morals contradict our own, Frollo has a complex psychological understanding of what he's doing and why he's doing it. He uses his belief to incorrectly justify what he thinks are necessary harsh actions, as well as viewing others as disposable due to his sense of superiority. He knows better because he's the boss, and clearly no one can understand the emotional turmoil that his earthly presence can bear, burning within him. You get it? Burning. Fire. Hellfire. And the decisions that follow his turmoil. Historically, there are a lot of bad dudes who do the same. Generally, people as a whole try to be good, in their own understanding of moral goodness. It's rare to find the standard supervillains that just like to be bad outside the psychopaths and sociopaths out there. As a general concept, most people care about other people. It takes a certain kind of ideology for that viewpoint to be morphed, and helps support doing such what would be considered evil acts. Take Hitler and Stalin, for example, who felt their actions were justified because it was for the greater good. Hitler is especially a clear comparison for this, as his grand future for Germany required such a superior mindset in order to mentally justify it. People will satisfy their need for superiority in some really unhealthy places and actions, and why I still believe completely evil villains work. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. The question is a villain who is simply evil for the sake of being evil realistic anymore? What does being evil for the sake of evil really mean? Or even characters who don't care about being good or evil? Frollo is one of the more interesting examples that comes to mind because he is the blurry line as far as villains that are influenced by their own sense of reality. As horrible as the stuff Frollo is doing is, he believes himself on the winning end of the G-Man up there. But the definition of a more traditional villain usually has some sense of greater understanding of right and wrong, and just choose to ignore it in favor of personal gain. Is that a bad person? Are people like Frollo bad people because they don't have the self-awareness to start questioning their actions more critically? But maybe it's best to come and compare his characterization to another popular villain for similar, more gray morality lines.
Life's not fair, is it? You see, I shall never be king. And you shall never see the light of another day. And you...
Scar didn't directly cause the massacre, but his ambitious tendencies do kind of screw over others a little bit. I think as far as personal morality, Scar takes the cake. As part of the original success of The Lion King was because of the OG twist villain. Scar did push his own brother off a cliff and then tried to pin the guilt on a child. Scar doesn't seem to have a conscience. He just feels like he's been wronged by lion society, and that entitles him to take whatever means necessary to take the throne. To its credit, the live-action movie adds another motivation to this, Sarabi herself, which feels like it fits much better tonally than trying to make Nala work. I know they're animals, but this has some weird age implications that I feel are best avoided.
My son?
Yes?
I'm not touching that with a 60-foot pole. Next caller.
The key difference between these two are their moral values. They both use their values to justify the end to their means, but Frollo uses his pull to justify extreme moral views. As seen in the history discussion, while Scar is more concerned with the end result of his actions and how they personally benefit him. Can we argue that Scar is relatable? I guess, in the sense that the life isn't fair logic is used even in other forms of media.
Like your two of a kind, sentimental children forever whining about how bitterly unfair your lives have been. Well, it may have escaped your notice, but life isn't fair. Your blessed father knew that. In fact, he frequently sought to.
But unlike Snape, most people will distance themselves from Scar as a character because even with his motivation, it doesn't justify his actions. Frollo is the opposite, having his morals justify acts that most people wouldn't really consider moral, even within the first part of the film. And comparing these two, and even going further to say, just because the villain seems human and has morals that the audience can relate to, doesn't mean their actions are ones that the audience can sympathize with. Actions and worldviews are two different things.
I'm totally gonna kill everybody, take over the world.
As we get farther in our understanding of writing complex characters, there's this need to flesh them out, so we can make clear to the audience what are the aspects of these characters, such as their motivations. This seems like basic storytelling, right? The audience has to relate to the characters present in the story in order to love the story, right? Flat characters and villains don't get the job done these days. They make us feel distant from the conflict. That's why I think the new Hunchback of Notre Dame play tried to humanize Frollo, to make him more compelling to the audience because we can believe that his character is a monster, because we can see that progression. But ultimately, this interpretation forgets that Frollo's distance from his own humanity is what made him so chilling in the first place. These characters are present in other forms of media, not just Disney movies, but we have to find ways to discover them first. A modern example is the female Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse. Put your comparisons to the male Doc Ock aside, there's a stark comparison to how she's portrayed compared to the main villain of the film, Kingpin. Kingpin is a character that's fleshed out to have a strong motivation for basically threatening the world, while Olivia is just motivated by the pure spite of it all because of her interest in science. In fact, you can argue that she doesn't really care for the concepts of good and evil, all she cares about are the actions that lead to the knowledge, regardless of how she gets it. In comparing these two characters, I don't see the argument that Olivia is particularly weaker compared to the highly fleshed out Kingpin, they're just characters that exist in their own space. There are different characters that are motivated by different things. There are some characters motivated by the end justifying the means, while the others have viewpoints of the past contributing to their actions. There are other examples to this divide. Even in My Little Pony, we have the reformed Discord compared to more direct threats like Queen Chrysalis and Tyrek. It's fun to have a threat to the heroes that can be menacing and power-hungry. It can also make the threat more intimidating, as a clear good versus evil conflict can make the hero's perspective more justified, which makes the stakes even higher in some regards when the conflict is more black and white in that sense. Even going back farther, we have characters like Maleficent, who I guess had some small tidbit that contributed to her behavior. Oh no, I didn't get invited to that party, I'm gonna curse everything.
You stuck-up precious little let me tell you something.
Oh boy, here we go.
Arguably, the new Maleficent movies address this by doing exactly what we've been talking about, giving her a deep and hurtful backstory in order to show her as a sympathetic figure in her own narrative. While I do give some credit for these films for having more of a creative vision than just doing a shot-for-shot remake with no structure. Guys, stop. Stop it. I said stop it!
It's time to stop!
There's an unsaid argument that the original source is the superior character, turning this idea about character development on its head. Sure, Angelina Jolie might be more relatable, I guess, but the original Maleficent is basically the unofficial mascot for all of evil in Disney, to the point that they make Mickey battle Dragon her at Disneyland, as well as being the boss of all the evil bosses in Kingdom Hearts. That's why we should consider the live-action films, and consequently things like Disney Descendants in their own universes. These franchises aren't rebranding the parks or replacing the originals anytime soon. To get back to Maleficent, comparing her to evil villains in the Disney animated canon, she seems to be using the excuse of not getting invited to the party to just be evil. Humanity doesn't seem like her favorite person, and she seems to revel in just causing misery, which wouldn't be happening if it was just about the party that she missed. She thoroughly enjoys causing people pain for the sake of it. She doesn't want to kill Philip, she wants to make him suffer and takes joy in it.
The years roll by, but 100 years to a steadfast heart are but a day. And now, the gates of the dungeon part, and our prince is free to go his way.
Yes, there's a natural need to make characters like Frollo and Maleficent more sympathetic and human-like, and seeing them both fall from that can echo something about our society and the projections we let manifest in ourselves. But I would argue factors like Frollo's isolation from normal morality and the extremes that he goes to justify himself make him more threatening. There, I said it. Drowning a baby should obviously be bad. Don't do that, guys. But Frollo is so lost in his head that he's able to justify this to himself.
This is an unholy demon. I'm sending it back to hell, where it belongs.
It takes fearing for his moral soul to question that maybe he shouldn't kill this baby. Maybe it's a bad idea. That's the fundamental shift in the pure evil that is Frollo. Frollo uses his opinions to justify his actions rather than his own selfishness. That's what makes him so distancing and scary, and that's why villains like him should still exist. It's also why villains who we don't understand can be just as scary and compelling as the ones we do. After all, isn't the unknown the greatest fear of them all? A sympathetic villain can make the plot of the story more compelling, and make all sides of the conflict feel like they have a genuine point, but in our society, we have to deal with people and things we don't understand all the time. So although characters like Frollo might seem isolated in their motivations, especially compared to recent media, these characters are still realistic and overall compelling. You just gotta think about how. So if you like this deep analysis about media and film ideas, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe. I love you. And that's all, folks, except it's not time for the ending gag.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
Hey kid, you wanna buy some drugs?
What are drugs?
What are drugs? Well, they're spectacular substances that make you feel magnificent!
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching.
If you like what you saw, please remember to leave a comment and share this video with a friend or fewer 5.
Click here to subscribe, we really appreciate it. Click here to check out the main collaborator for the video. Click here to check out our video playlist for this video, where you'll find similar videos that you might just like, hopefully. There's also a credit scroll here to check out all the other awesome contributors. All their info is in the description. That's all I gotta say, KP away!